Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives. And today we're going to be discussing the third film in the Deadpool film trilogy / the 34th film to be released as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Deadpool and Wolverine. So, just a bit of a heads up, I accidentally deleted a 16-minute recording and I made some good headway in that, so apologies if it feels like I'm rushing in the beginning of this. So, anyway, with that out of the way, did you know that Deadpool and Wolverine almost didn't get made? So yeah, just like how Ryan Reynolds apparently had an uphill battle when it came to making the first Deadpool movie, apparently Deadpool and Wolverine was a similar uphill battle. After Disney managed to acquire the film rights of 20th Century Fox, they really were not interested in doing anything Deadpool related, and as such, while a third film was planned, they wound up scrapping it in favor of trying to reintegrate their properties into the MCU, with like the X-Men, Fantastic Four, etc. However, the people behind the scenes, namely Ryan Reynolds and several others, did still try to get a Deadpool movie made, and eventually one was greenlit, but only because of one stipulation. They told the higher execs that they got Hugh Jackman on to reprise his role as Wolverine, and as such, with that little addition, the film was greenlit. However, with that in mind, the question was raised, how exactly would they bring Wolverine back for the MCU? After all, at the end of Logan, Wolverine kind of bit the dust. He died for realsies, and it was made clear by everybody that he wasn't coming back. So, why is he here? The multiverse. Yeah, at this point, the multiverse is pretty much a pre-established thing with the MCU. We've seen it in some of the various properties and movies, so ultimately their excuse for bringing Wolverine back is that they just grabbed another one from another universe. So, there you go. But even with that in mind, this was still the third film in the Deadpool trilogy, and not only that, it's the film that was integrating the Merc with a Mouth into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, it definitely had some big shoes to fill, so to speak. But that's not really new territory for Deadpool. He's had to step into territory that he's been unfamiliar with before, and he's come out on top. So, does this film manage to successfully integrate Deadpool, and, yes, Wolverine, into the MCU proper? Well, let's take a look at it and find out, and just a heads up, there are going to be a bunch of spoilers in this video. At the time that I'm doing this recording, the movie has only been in theaters for 2 weeks. So if you have not seen Deadpool and Wolverine and want to go into the movie unspoiled, turn away now, because I am not going to be sparing a single detail. The plot's going to be spoiled rotten, so again, you'll turn back now, lest you forever hold your peace. Are we good? Okay, and one more thing, I do have a bunch of notes here, which I may sometimes be referring to and pausing as I look for specific entries. So again, if I ever do that, I just wanted to let you know, and it's also hot, so aforementioned drink. That's good stuff. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get to the long-ass plot summary, and much like the first two Deadpool movies, this one begins sort of in media res, as it opens up with Deadpool as he's exhuming the body of Wolverine. Why? Well, because he thinks Wolverine's okay, that if he just digs in that grave, he won't find anything. After all, Wolverine had a healing factor. The healing factors don't just let you die. He probably got back up, dug himself out, probably filled back in the grave, and he's probably off somewhere enjoying himself, drinking a pina colada, and just having the time of his life. No, he's dead. He is dead. When Deadpool digs up his grave, he finds something about a rotting corpse and the remains of Wolverine's adamantium-lined skeleton, much to his own chagrin, because he was kind of hoping that Wolverine would effectively be alive. And as such, he ends up unearthing the body and then just cursing as he plays with it. However, Deadpool doesn't really have a lot of time to mull on this, as he gets some unexpected / unwanted company in the form of the Time Variance Authority, aka the TVA. Now, I've talked about the TVA in these vlogs before, namely when I did my vlog on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But on the off chance you haven't seen that, and haven't seen Loki, here's a quick update on what they are. Essentially, the TVA is an organization that was established by a variant of Kang called He Who Remains, and he set the organization up to essentially ensure that the multiverse was not a thing. Managing to gather variants of various people from across the multiverse, he wound up filling up the TVA with them and wiped their memories so they forgot they were variants, and their job is to essentially ensure the multiverse doesn't exist, because if the multiverse is a thing, then all the variants of Kang will come back and it'll result in a multiversal war. As such, while He Who Remains kept this up for a while, eventually thanks to the events of Loki, the TVA learned what they really were, who the employees were, and that ultimately He Who Remains was full of shit. And as such, after various shenanigans involving Loki and the near destruction of time itself, the multiverse was ultimately repaired, and the TVA's new purpose is, yes, to still preserve the integrity of the sacred timeline, aka the main MCU, but also to make sure the multiverse stays intact. Make sure nothing happens to the greater infinite realities that could result in their complete and utter destruction, so to speak. And, well, the thing is, the TVA is after Wade for various crimes against time itself. As such, this leads to honestly one of the best opening sequences in all the Deadpool movies. As we get our opening credits, the song kind of lined up to the song Bye 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 in sync, while Deadpool uses Wolverine's adamantium bones to just slice, dice, and just mow down every member of the TVA that comes for him. It's just badass. I recommend finding the scene somewhere. It's just glorious, and apparently the scene was so popular that NSYNC actually went onto the YouTube and added to the Bye 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 music video from Deadpool and Wolverine. That's just how popular it was. But like all the Deadpool movies, we have to ask, how did we get here? Why is Wade unearthing Wolverine's remains? Well, to get that answer, we have to go back, specifically to the year 2018. So, if you remember at the end of Deadpool 2, Wade stole Cable's time travel watch and used it to just bop around the timeline and mess around with things a bit. He did it to save Vanessa, he did it to save Peter, he did it to kill his other self in X-Men Origins, and he shot Ryan Reynolds in the head so that he wouldn't be in Green Lantern. But the thing is, after he did all that, Deadpool decided to use the time watch to make one more pit stop. Namely, he jumped over to the MCU. Why? Because he wants to join the Avengers. And as such, we actually see Wade as he's in the middle of a job interview with Happy Hogan, of course, with the job being, of course, the Avengers. But the thing is, the job interview isn't going well, as Wade claims that the reason why he wants to join the Avengers is because his girlfriend, Vanessa, is not exactly happy with what Wade has been doing, and is finally kind of fed up with his shit, and he says he wants to do right by her and join the Avengers, claiming that he wants to actually matter, that he needs this, and unfortunately, Happy doesn't really go for that, as while he does see that Wade has a good heart, he says that Wade's doing this for the wrong reasons, that the Avengers don't do the things they do because they need it, they do the things they do because people need them. And as such, while he does tell Deadpool that he, like I said, he is a good person, this probably isn't the thing for him, and that he needs to go find what he's good at. As such, from there, the film cuts ahead to 6 years later, as we see that Wade has hung up the tights and given up the mercenary life as Deadpool, and has now become a used car salesman alongside Peter. Yeah, kind of a downgrade, but he's at least a bit more content, so to speak, in this new life. Though Peter does say that maybe Wade could one day go back to the mercenary life, with Peter even having Wade's old costume in his work locker, just in case that one day Wade decides to go back and do the whole superhero thing again, though Wade is still hesitant to do any of that. As such, while Peter is still trying to try and coax Wade into doing the whole superhero thing, Wade says he's not going to, but at the end of the day, Peter and Wade do have a bit of a healthy relationship, and so after work, they go back to Wade's apartment because it's his birthday and there's a party there waiting for him. However, on the way home, Wade notices that he feels like he's being watched, and he turns around and sees that his apparent watchers are a pair of subway workers, though they quickly look away once they notice that Wade's looking at them. However, Wade doesn't really give it a second thought as he and Peter make his way to Wade and Blindow's apartment, and sure enough, there's a party there waiting for them as all of Wade's friends are there. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Yukio, Colossus, Dopender, Blind Al, even Vanessa, and they're all there to just celebrate Wade, though apparently that Wade and Blind Al can't celebrate the way they want to because that involves cocaine, and apparently according to Kevin Feige, that's a no-go. However, one very important thing we learn about in this party is that, well, Wade and Vanessa are no longer an item. Apparently they broke it off after the whole thing with the Avengers, and while it's clear from the way they talk with one another and their body language that they both still care about one another, the tension between them is exceedingly palpable, and it's clear that for whatever reason there are just too many walls for them to cross, so they're just kind of keeping each other at arm's length, which Does kind of suck considering everything that Wade went through just to try and be with Vanessa in the last two movies, but whatever. Point is, though, Vanessa is still a positive force in his life, and despite the tension between him and her, Wade says he's happy as everyone gathers around the birthday cake, and Wade says that he's just happy to have everyone here. That to him, everyone here is his world. He cares about them all, and he wouldn't ask for anything else. As such, with a cheer of happy birthday, Wade blows out the birthday candles, only for there to be a knock at his door. As such, he goes in to see who's knocking, and, well, there are TVA agents right at his door. However, Wade at this point has no idea that they're the TVA, and actually assumes that they're just sex workers that Dopebender hired for Wade's birthday. As such, after he ends up handing out instructions about what he wants to do with all of them, that he wants them to lose all their clothes except for the helmets, the TVA agents are pretty much just sick of Wade's shit, and they effectively kidnap him, opening a time door, shoving him through, taking off a fake wig that he wore, and then following after. As such, the film cuts to the TVA agency as we see Wade sitting across from the man who apparently ordered his kidnapping. A man by the name of Paradox. Mr. Paradox. As such, Wade wants to know why the hell the TVA is interested in him, with his first assumption being that they want him because of him messing around with the Time Watch. But while Mr. Paradox claims that the TVA is fully aware of Deadpool messing with the time stream, they're not here for him. And as such, he ends up bringing Wade away, and he does explain more about the TVA's job, preserving the sacred timeline and all that. And apparently, Wade's a very important figure in that regard, as at some point down the line, he's going to be participating in something very special that will ensure the safety of the sacred timeline, aka the main MCU. And Mr. Paradox thinks that with that in mind, maybe it's time that Wade jump ship. As such, he leads Wade to this, big central control hub room, and essentially, he just shows him clips from the MCU, telling Wade that maybe it's time for him to join a greater universe, much to the good Mr. Wilson's shock, and as he just watches all these clips and realizes he's essentially being handed the keys to the kingdom here. He's being invited to join the MCU, which is made even better by the fact that one of those clips is apparently something from his far future where Thor is cradling Deadpool's body and crying, which makes Wade go, wait, why is he crying? And apparently the TVA just shuts it off. Point is, though, they want him to join, and Wade, after calling himself Marvel Jesus and then promptly telling 20th Century Fox to fuck off, he's going to Disneyland, he accepts the job. However, before he goes to the MCU, he wants to make sure he has the proper attire. As such, he gets sent to the TVA's tailor, and he gets suited up in a brand new Deadpool costume with brand new weapons, though apparently the guy handling everything is a bit more handsy than he would like as he touches Deadpool in very inappropriate places. But whatever. Deadpool's got a new suit. He's got new weapons with katanas made from adamantium. He's happy and ready to go. And though he does talk about Mr. Paradox about doing a little work schedule, because Wade's under the impression this would be like a part-time gig that'll pop over to the MCU sometimes and then just commute back to the X-Men universe. And as such, he even saying that he wants to go back to his timeline and let all his friends know that they are effectively disciples. Only for Mr. Paradox to kind of drop a bomb on Wade. And this is kind of where we need to get into some bit heavy shit and go back to talking about Logan. So, like I said, at the end of Logan, Wolverine bit the bullet. It was a very big thing. His death carried a lot of weight, but he went out like a hero, saving innocent children and even one girl that was effectively his daughter. It was a great heroic sacrifice and a great end to the character. But apparently, that death had greater implications than we even realize. As apparently, in the multiverse, there are various beings that are tied to specific timelines called anchor beings. Beings whose very being, so to speak, is so implicitly tied to their universe that if anything happens to these people, their timeline starts to slowly die. And unfortunately, Wolverine was one such being to Deadpool's universe. And as a result, the X-Men universe is effectively rotting on the vine. It is just slowly but surely dying. And the thing is, since Wade was considered so important for the MCU, it was considered top priority to get him out of there before his timeline went belly up. So while he gets a free pass, his entire universe, everyone in it, they're gonna die. And there's no way that they can save it. Of course, Wade starts freaking out a little because, hey, that's his home and everyone he loves and cares about is there, and he just kind of wonders, well, how long do we got? No, and Mr. Paradox claims that that timeline deterioration typically takes maybe 2,500 years, so yeah, they got time to fix it. But Mr. Paradox is kind of an ass and a whiny little bitch, and as it turns out, it's his job to monitor the X-Men universe, and he doesn't want to just sit around and watch a timeline die. So he's decided he wants to perform a mercy killing on the X-Men universe by rigging up a device called a Time Ripper and essentially just obliterating the timeline completely, hook, line, and sinker, which Deadpool thinks is a little psychotic. But Mr. Paradox is a dick. He is just a dick. There is no polite way of saying it. He is an absolute whiny bitch, and he just does not want to sit around and watch a timeline. He wants to make something of himself, darn it! He wants to be the TVA, he wants to be he wants to be in charge, which means he's got his show, he means something, and that means effectively mercy killing this universe, so he's got the right stuff. And yeah, my opinion of Mr. Paradox is very low. He's a crummy villain, and I hate him. Point is, though, he thinks that he wants the X-Men universe to just fucking die. And while, of course, Wade has obvious objections to this, he's, again, disregarding it because he doesn't want to sit around and just watch one world die when he thinks he could be doing better things. Thankfully, there is a saving grace. So apparently the Time Ripper will take like at least 2 days or 3 days before it's up and running. So Wade does have time to save his universe, but Wade says that he wants that if he can find another anchor being, maybe he could restore his universe, stop it from deteriorating. But again, Mr. Paradox doesn't want to do it. He wants to move on to bigger and better things, and his job was basically get Deadpool and get him to the sacred timeline. So he's not willing to compromise on this. He just like I said, he just wants the X-Men universe dead, so he gives Wade a choice. Either he just sits back and does nothing and joins the sacred timeline, or he can face the repercussions of his actions. And as such, Wade makes his decision and decides that he's going to get his timeline a new anchor being. As such, after headbutting Mr. Paradox in the nose, he manages to steal his phone, which is what he used to open gateways, and then just jumps out before the TVA can grab him, which is what led to Wade digging up Wolverine's corpse, because he thought, hey, maybe Wolverine's not dead, and what led to the TVA eventually trying to get him. As such, after Wade kills all the TVA agents that went after him, Wade decides that if his Wolverine is beyond saving, then maybe there's another Wolverine in the multiverse he can get. And from there, we get a montage as Wade goes from universe to universe trying to meet up with all those world's Wolverines in an attempt to recruit them to join up and become his universe's new anchor being. And it's a pretty fun cavalcade of alternate Wolverines. The first one he gets is actually a comic accurate size, though he's still played by Hugh Jackman, and I love it. There's another one that's essentially from the Apocalypse timeline, which I love. There's one that's crucified. There's one that's called Patch, who's just Wolverine in an eye patch. There's one that's played by Henry Cavill. That's kind of awesome. And there's even one that's in a John Byrne accurate costume fighting the Hulk, which results in Deadpool getting punched into a tree. Again, I love this movie. But eventually, Wade's search does lead him to a Wolverine that he thinks will work, as after he gets punched by Cavalrine, he ends up popping into a bar in another universe where he once again meets another Wolverine who's just kind of drowning his sorrows. As such, Deadpool goes up to him and immediately wants to talk to him about, coming back with him to the TVA so he can become Deadpool's universe's new anchor being. But like all the other Wolverines, this one isn't exactly going for it. Though, unlike those Wolverines, he's not immediately unsheathing his claws to try and go stabby at the guy in the red suit. As such, Wade does try being nice to him, tries talking with him, but with this Wolverine actively being hostile and drunk off his ass to the point where he can't even completely unsheath his claws, Wade decides he finally has to pull out the heavy artillery as he points a gun at him and just says, okay, you're coming with me whether you like it or not. As such, after Wolverine downs another bottle of vodka, he just passes out without a fight. The Wolverine, everybody. As such, Wade decides, fuck it, this guy will do since it's the only one that hasn't skewered me. But as he grabs Wolverine, he notices that there's something on under his clothes. And thus, after looking to the camera and saying, well, it only took 20 fucking years, he picks up this Wolverine and brings him back to the TVA. And we see that what he had under his outfit was a superhero costume, specifically a more comic-accurate Wolverine costume in yellow and black. And yeah, it does look really fucking cool. It really does look like it was ripped straight out of the comics. So the only real addition being that his has sleeves, which apparently was done because Hugh Jackman apparently has a skin condition involving the sunlight, so they had to kind of limit as much exposure to the sun as they could, hence why they gave the costume sleeves, but otherwise, it looks really damn good. As such, like I said, he brings this Wolverine back to the TVA saying they got a new anchor being, but Mr. Paradox just laughs in his face, telling him that one, even if he did, no matter which Wolverine he would have brought, he would have said, no, he's not getting a new anchor being, your world's still dying. But apparently, this particular Wolverine, he's the worst of the bunch, as apparently he's done stuff that is just so heinous and unforgivable that apparently he's just terrible. That out of all the Wolverines in the multiverse, he is just the worst. And even if Mr. Paradox was willing to let him be the anchor being, he would have been a very terrible choice. As such, Deadpool is just kind of lost for words as he says, well, maybe I can talk with someone. What do I do? What can I say? But Mr. Paradox said, look, I gave you a chance. You broke my nose. I'm not going to tell you anything. As such, Deadpool starts getting angry and says he wants to talk to the people upstairs about this, that maybe he can vouch for his universe. Only for everyone in the room to go quiet. And Deadpool realizes something. This whole axing his universe thing, it's off the books. They're doing this completely on their own. Mr. Paradox is acting independent of the TVA and he didn't go through any official channels. He's literally just doing this because he wants to show that he has the cojones to be in charge of the TVA. I still hate this character. So Deadpool realizes that all he has to do is just go upstairs and Karen his way to the top, and he can effectively just stop Mr. Paradox's plan right in the dust. This results in Deadpool getting pruned. For those that don't know, the pruning is this thing the TVA does whenever they encounter a variant. Basically, they have these batons on them that if they if they hit a variant with them, it causes them to effectively dematerialize from the spot. Now, on the outset, it looks like they're just atomized, but in reality, these things send them to a place at the end of time called the Void. And, well, that's what Mr. Paradox has done to Deadpool. At this point, Wolverine gets up and wonders what the hell Mr. Paradox did, before Mr. Paradox is naming to him, effectively getting rid of any opposition he has to erasing the X-Men universe. And from there, we cut to the Void, as, yeah, the place is just as desolate and creepy as we saw from the Loki series, because, yeah, we did see this thing in Loki. And, well, while Deadpool is still kind of getting his bearings after getting pruned, Wolverine is still right pissed, because from his perspective, he just got taken out of his timeline, brought to a strange, weird office by this weird clown in red pajamas, and now they're in essentially this big, endless, barren wasteland that has almost fuck nothing in it, save for the remains of various dead universes and timelines, including the 20th Century Fox logo. Don't know why. Point is, the Canadian with the claws is pissed, and he grabs Deadpool and demands to know where the hell they are. Of course, Wade tries telling him that he's just as confused, but this just results in a bit of violence between the two that escalates to the point where they get into a full-on fight scene, which, yeah, it's definitely awesome. Even Wade admits that this is what the fans have wanted. So, yeah, it's no holds barred. And I'll say this. When your combatants in a fight are two people with healing factors that are so effective they cannot die, it allows for some very cool action as they can go all out against each other. There is nothing held back. Deadpool and Wolverine just do not stop at anything. They just keep slashing and bashing and shooting at each other, and it's just a really kick-ass fight scene, and I cannot do it justice. However, in the midst of the fight, Wolverine does get the advantage over Deadpool and nearly cuts his head off. But then Wade starts pleading and says that he can help Wolverine. After all, like Mr. Paradox said, this Wolverine apparently did something that was so horrible that it can't be forgiven. And Wade says that if Wolverine can help Deadpool save his timeline and get back to the TVA, then the TVA can undo whatever it is that happened in Wolverine's past, effectively fix his universe. And Hearing that does get Wolverine to listen. However, their conversation is put on hold as there's an unexpected visitor standing on what looks like a metal platform, saying that if they fight each other, they're all effectively doomed. With Wolverine wondering who the hell this is, but Wade recognizes this guy's voice, and he starts fangirling hard for whoever this is. And when this person jumps off this platform and does an effective superhero landing, he pulls back his hood, and we see that it's Chris Evans. So naturally, you think that this is a Captain America variant we're seeing, and Wade starts fangirling hard for him. However, before you can actually talk with the good Mr. Evans, the Cap here says that they are coming. And so the trio look, and yeah, there are various cars coming armed with various mutants. And yeah, we see that Deadpool and Wolverine aren't the only remnants of the X-Men universe that have gotten pruned and sent to the void. As these cars and all the cars are armed with various mutants that we've seen throughout the X-Men movies, including Toad, Pyro, and Sabretooth. And it shows that it makes it even better. One of them is actually driving a Fantastic car. That's gotta suck. As such, they immediately arrive and they say that they've been hunting these people for a while, that someone has been looking for Cap for a while now, and they're ready to take him. Although, when Cap responds to this little threat, he kind of gets into some vulgar language, which surprises Deadpool, but hey, he's all for it. As such, Cap gets ready to stand and ready to fight. Wade starts fangirling because he thinks he's going to say Avengers Assemble. And then Cap yells, "Flame on!" Yeah, this isn't Captain America. This is Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch of the Fantastic Four. Yes, Chris Evans came back to reprise the role, and it is that version of the character. As such, the Human Torch takes the air and starts opening fire on this band of mutants, only for Pyro to literally suck the fire out of him, resulting in the good Mr. Storm falling flat on his face in a very painful and humiliating fashion. Nads hit a metal pole, he smacks his head on a platform, and then just lands flat on his ass. It's not pleasant. However, Wolverine and Deadpool think they have a better time as Sabretooth arrives, and he and Wolverine do get going one-on-one, with the battle ending in seconds with Wolverine beheading Sabretooth. As such, while Wade thinks that this means that their chances are very positive because, hey, they just beheaded Sabretooth, well, it turns out the mutants prepared for that as they have a giant magnet, and since Wolverine's skeleton is covered in adamantium, that effectively makes him useless. And he ends up and when he does this, when he gets pulled into the magnet, he ends up accidentally grabbing Deadpool, effectively sandwiching the Merc of the Mouth between Wolverine and the giant magnet. So yeah, they're out for the count. And as a result, this merry band of mutants managed to grab Wolverine, Deadpool, and the Human Torch and lock them in a cage, with Deadpool eventually regaining consciousness as they get closer and closer to the base of their base. As such, Deadpool manages to talk a bit with Johnny Storm, and we get a bit more exposition on the Void, as apparently there are more hierarchies in the Void than we were led to believe during the events of Loki. For those that need a reminder, the Void is essentially just where pruned variants go, where timelines go to die. And, well, the Void has its own little cleanup crew in the form of a living maelstrom called Eliath, which literally has the power to eat entire timelines. This is the thing that He Who Remains used to win his war against the other Kangs. And, well, while He Who Remains is gone and the TVA has stopped pruning timelines, there are still plenty of people to send to the Void, as apparently people are sent here who are considered threats to the multiverse, which is why all these mutants are here, and apparently Johnny Storm, which we'll get more into why he's here later, but the point is, it's clear that everyone here did have a timeline once, but for one reason or another were sent to the Void and are now either Eliath's lunch, or they end up working for her. And who is her? Well, Deadpool and Wolverine do get their answer as they eventually manage to enter the base of the big boss in charge of all these mutants. And you want to know something funny? Well, not really funny, but interesting. The base is the hollowed out corpse of Ant-Man. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. point is, though, once they all arrive, Johnny, Wolverine, and Deadpool are let out of their cage, and the head of Ant-Man is opening up, showcasing his skull, and it's here where the leader of this merry band of mutants arrives. And at first, they think it's Charles Xavier, since this person is bald and in a wheelchair, only for this person to stand up and reveal that this isn't a he, this is a she. And her name is Cassandra Nova, Charles Xavier's twin sister. And she is quite insane, as you will see, as apparently her first psychotic act was trying to choke her brother in the womb with her umbilical cord. And in the void, she is queen. Yeah, we learned through later exposition that apparently Cassandra was sent to the void before she could even walk. That's how much of a threat the TVA saw her as. And as such, she's been happily living in the void ever since. Mostly because in the void, she doesn't have to worry about hiding her powers. She can do literally whatever the fuck she wants, and no one can stop her. And she loves it. Case in point, when she sees Deadpool, Wolverine, and Johnny Storm, she just marvels at them and just kind of starts acting all coy, like, we haven't gotten a Wolverine before, and Johnny, I've been looking for you for quite some time, and she also ends up killing Johnny as she uses her mental powers to literally rip the skin off his body. Though she was prompted by Deadpool, who said that Johnny said a lot of unflattering things towards her, which Johnny denies vehemently. But yeah, Johnny Storm is dead. As such, while Wolverine tries to fight Cassandra, she ends up burying him in the dirt and sends him flying before she decides she wants to peek around in Deadpool's head. And the thing is, we see another example of her powers. As the thing is, Charles had the power to enter someone's mind with barely little any effort. All he had to do was just kind of focus, and boom, he could see through someone else's eyes. We saw that in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness when he tried to help his universe's Wanda Maximoff fend off her psychotic counterpart in the main MCU timeline. But in the case of Cassandra, she has to literally get up close and personal, by which I mean she shoves her hand in your head. And yes, it looks as creepy as it sounds, as that she ends up burrowing into Deadpool's head, and she ends up seeing a memory, specifically the memory of Wade and Vanessa breaking up. And it's here we actually get a bit more nuance to why they broke up, because apparently their relationship wasn't as bad as Wade thought it was. Like he said when he went to talk to Happy about joining the Avengers, he thought that Vanessa was done with his shit and was getting tired of was tired of the mercenary life and wanted him to turn his life around. Well, apparently, the thing is, apparently after that Avengers meeting, Wade just kind of was in the pits and was just beating himself up, and Vanessa was worried about him. She wanted to be there for him. She wanted to help him. But Wade kept shutting her out, which almost makes it look like that Wade was the one pushing all this, and starts to give the impression that maybe Wade thought he wasn't good enough, that maybe he wasn't that he was the problem. Which, considering that Vanessa was killed and was only brought back to life thanks to Wade messing with time, I can kind of understand that. And what makes this even worse is that in this memory, Wade does tell Vanessa that if she thinks he's not good enough, they can just end it right now. And we never hear if she's the one that ended the relationship, as immediately Cassandra messes with the memory by having Vanessa say that he's a fucking loser, but which she never said. And it leaves it ambiguous who's the one that ended the relationship, whether it was Vanessa or Wade, which I like. It leaves enough ambiguousness to everything, so that it makes you wonder if Deadpool wound up completely self-sabotaging and ended it himself, or if Vanessa just couldn't take it anymore and left. Which, considering both of their characters, I'm willing to bet it was Deadpool who pulled the plug on their relationship. But either way, Deadpool sees through Cassandra's manipulation and tells her royally to F off. And it turns out that while Cassandra was focused primarily on Deadpool, Wolverine managed to dig himself out from the dirt and stabs her in the back, quite literally. Whereas with Deadpool taking the opportunity to grab his baby knife and stab Cassandra in the chest there. So yeah, it looks like they killed the bitch. Emphasis on looks like. As it turns out, Cassandra's mental powers offer her more than just being able to peek inside someone's head. She can also heal herself from any injuries. So these literal, almost fatal wounds, they're basically just light scratches to her, and she just laughs them maniacally off. And it turns out that part of the reason why she wanted to peek into Deadpool and Wolverine's heads was because she wanted to see if they were worth her time to play with, especially in the case of Wolverine, because, well, he's a Wolverine. He's a fighter, and he can do a lot of crazy, intense shit. So she kind of wants him on her side. However, thanks to their interactions, she thinks that maybe it's time that she let them go, because the thing is, Alioth is still, like I said, Alioth is still a thing in the Void, and he's hungry. And as such, Cassandra says it's time maybe to pay the rent, with Deadpool and Wolverine being the rent. As such, Alioth just starts zeroing in on the base, ready to consume the two regenerating weirdos, but thankfully Wolverine manages to mount an escape plan by grabbing a nearby robotic leg, turning it on, grabbing Deadpool, and the leg just rockets out of the base with the two heroes all riding on top of it until they manage to get far enough away from Cassandra's base. As such, once they're far enough away, immediately Deadpool and Wolverine realize they need to think of a new strategy. After all, they can't trust Cassandra now. The bitch is crazy and if they try going back to her, she will kill them. So they need to find another way out of this. And thankfully, they do have a way. Going back to when when Deadpool and Wolverine were being held with Johnny mentioned that there were people in the Void who were actively fighting against Cassandra. People who lived on the outer rim of the Void that were sent there for various reasons. And as such, Wolverine thinks that if they can go there and get their help, they might be able to get a chance to get out of here. With him now fully being invested in this mission because, like Deadpool said, if they can reach the TVA, then the TVA might be able to undo whatever happened in Wolverine's past. As such, while Deadpool and Wolverine do start bickering a bit, and even at one point stop at a diner to get some lunch, where they end up trading backstories about how much they feel like pieces of shit, they do eventually make their way to the outer rim of the Void, with Deadpool even sharing some more stories of his world's Wolverine and about how he died saving X-23. However, as these two continue making their way through the Void, eventually they end up encountering more of the Void's residents. Namely, they encounter Dogpool! Yes, this is a dog variant of Deadpool. Her name is Mary Poppins. And yes, the instant that Wade sees her, he just falls head over heels in love with this ugly dog, and I don't blame him. The dog is fucking adorable. It needs all the snuggles and love. As such, Wade immediately is ready to just take Dogpool with him because, well, she's adorable. But it turns out the dog already has an owner in the form of another variant of Deadpool called Nicepool, who apparently is a version of Deadpool who is not horribly disfigured. He looks exactly like Ryan Reynolds without the makeup, and he has long flowing hair with some cool armor and two golden desert eagles, which Wade is immediately jealous of. As such, Nicepool is here to try and get Dogpool back, and part of the reason why he's called Nicepool is apparently he's just such a gosh darn nice fellow that you just can't help but like him. Although he does warn Deadpool and Wolverine to steer clear of the other Deadpools in the Void, called the Deadpool Corps, as apparently they're a lot more insane and a lot less friendly with people, so he thinks that maybe they should just try and avoid them. However, Wolverine takes this opportunity to ask Nicepool if there is a way that they can get to the Outer Rim to go see the rebellion, and Nicepool says that there is a way, and even offers them a chance to get there quickly, as apparently Nicepool has a ride that he's willing to loan them, which in this case is a Honda Odyssey, which at first Deadpool doesn't want to drive because in his time as a used car salesman he thinks that the Honda Odyssey is a piece of shit, but he and Wolverine don't really have a lot of options, so he has to reluctantly take it, and unfortunately reluctantly give Dogpool back, which actually leads to a funny scene, because the Honda Odyssey is in the middle of a cornfield, and when Nicepool asks for Dogpool back, Deadpool tries to make a run for it, but there were just too many stocks, so he has to give the dog back. It's funny, I love it, and I love Nicepool just being this gosh darn nice guy. But ultimately, Deadpool and Wolverine do end up do end up taking the Honda Odyssey and do make their way further into the void as they try and find this rebellion. And of course, as they're going along, they eventually enter a forest, and Deadpool continues trying to get some small talk out of Wolverine as he wants to learn more about whatever horrible thing happened to him that made him be the worst Wolverine. But he doesn't want to talk about it, especially since whatever it was is tied to why he's wearing a comic accurate costume. As such, to try and keep the conversation going, Deadpool ends up changing topics and says, "Hey, if we manage to fix your timeline, what do you think? What's the first thing you're gonna do?" At which, when Wolverine hears that, he ends up stopping the car and asks Deadpool to repeat that. And Deadpool says, "If we manage to fix your timeline, what are you gonna do?" Turns out that it's the word "if" that Wolverine has a problem with. You see, the whole reason he was helping Deadpool was because he was promised the opportunity to go back and undo the wrong that led him to being the worst Wolverine. But the fact that Deadpool said "if" implies that he's unsure if they'll be able to fix his timeline. Meaning that Deadpool lied. Something that Wolverine isn't exactly happy with. As such, after he stabs Deadpool in the leg, Deadpool comes clean and says that he didn't lie, he just made an educated guess. And the thing is, part of the reason why he did it, he's desperate. Like I said, his entire timeline is going to be dying in less than 3 days, and everyone he knows and loves is going to die along with it, and he wants nothing more than to save them. So he's willing to do whatever it takes to try and save them, and unfortunately that means he needs Wolverine's help. As such, after we get some more slight comedic / slightly tense drama between Deadpool and Wolverine finally is just sick of all of this, as the culmination of having to deal with Deadpool, combined with the revelation that the Merc of the Mouth lied to him, results in him just giving Deadpool a verbal smackdown about how he's a worthless piece of shit, that he's not worth, that he can't save anyone, that he can't make anything work, that he couldn't even make a relationship work with a goddamn stripper because Deadpool did tell him about Vanessa earlier, and that apparently it's a God's joke that Deadpool can't even die, but it's a joke on everyone else because they all have to deal with him. And after he does this verbal smackdown, it actually leaves Deadpool silent and almost in tears, which we don't see any tears in his eyes because he's wearing his mask at this point, but you do hear sniffling and he does look like his eyes are wiggling, like he is trying not to cry. At which point, he tells Wolverine that he's going to fight him, and the two get into a very brutal fight that trashes the interior of the Honda Odyssey. And they don't hold back. Again, they just keep going nuts on each other. Again, it's the beauty when your fighters have a healing factor. It means that they can go as all out as you want, and nothing can hurt them. As such, they just keep brutalizing each other and antagonizing one another as they keep going at it over and over until eventually they both get tired of fighting and end up just passing out in the car. However, as they're both just sleeping in the car, someone comes across it and ends up hijacking the car and brings it somewhere. Now, I can't really say what it is. It looks like it's basically old ruins in the void. I'm guessing it's something tied to Wundagore, because when we actually see the inside of the ruins, there is like a statue or carving dedicated to the Scarlet Witch, and the only other time we've seen that in the MCU was with Wundagore and Multiverse of Madness, so I don't know, maybe it could be what it is, but point is, whoever this person is brings Deadpool and Wolverine there, and upon both regaining consciousness, they both start wondering where the heck they are. Though Wolverine isn't complaining because wherever they are, it's stocked with booze, and that's okay with him. However, they soon end up meeting their hosts as they finally come face to face with the Rebellion. As it turns out, the Rebellion is made up of Marvel characters from pre-MCU Marvel movies. Specifically, Elektra from the Daredevil movies and Elektra, Blade, played once again by Wesley Snipes, and Gambit from basically Dead in the Water Gambit movie that Channing Tatum had been vying for, but sadly never managed to get through. And yes, this Gambit is also played by that same Channing Tatum, which, to give some kudos here, I kind of like that he's in here. When I first saw this movie a couple weeks ago, I had no idea that Channing Tatum had been vying to try and get a Gambit movie off the ground. And unfortunately, unlike Ryan Reynolds, he wasn't successful. And Ryan heard about that, and he decided to give him a hand, as he wound up getting him to come back to play a comic-accurate Gambit in this movie. And Channing Tatum turns in a fantastic performance. His version of Gambit is really damn good. He's got the accent down, the powers look amazing, the costume looks like it's ripped out of the comics, just good stuff. It's great. And it's cool that Channing Tatum finally can bring this role to life in the big screen, so good on him. As such, Deadpool immediately asks everyone. Of course, Deadpool recognizes each of these characters, save Gambit, because, again, his movie never even got made. But he does ask if they're the ones that brought Deadpool and Wolverine here, to which they say no. And we see who the fourth member of this rebellion is. Laura, a.k.a. X-23. And this isn't like a variant of her or anything. This isn't like some alternate version of her, no. This is Laura right from the Logan movie. She's older, but it's her. Same actress and everything. And what I love is that, as someone who had only seen the Logan movie a week prior to seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, this actress still turns in a fantastic performance. Apologies if I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I'm so sorry for that. But in Logan, she really carried across that anger and fury of a child in her position could carry, especially since she is technically the daughter of Wolverine. And she carries that into this movie, though it's clearly more tempered, and I like that. As such, after Deadpool is done geeking out about seeing Laura here, he immediately starts trying to urge the rebellion to help him and Wolverine, as they want to escape the void, and they kind of need to confront Cassandra to do that. At first, not everyone wants to do. These people don't want to help, because the thing is, they have tried to fight against Cassandra before, and they failed badly. A good many of their number have apparently died, including other variants of the Punisher and other heroes whose name I don't remember. So sorry. They'll again watch the movie. It's better off than I am, and I was taking notes throughout that scene. Point is, a lot of other heroes went up against them. Oh, also Magneto. That one didn't go well either. Point is, they haven't been doing a good job. However, Deadpool managed to sort of sway them to their side because, well, he and Wolverine did go into Cassandra's base and they came out alive, much to the rebellion's surprise. As such, this does give them a bit of hope, as they think that if Deadpool and Wolverine were able to get in and out, maybe they could go in themselves. But there's still the problem of Cassandra. Like I said, her powers are immense, and she sees the Void as her personal playground. Part of the reason why she's been trapped in the Void for so long is because she doesn't want to leave. She loves it here, and she never wants to go anywhere but here. And if anyone enters the Void, she doesn't want them to leave either, because then that means there's more people for her to mess with. So if they want to confront Cassandra and get her to help them, then that means that they need to find a way to block her mental powers. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of ways to do that. Well, like I said, Magneto did go up against her, but she killed him and even melted down his helmet so it couldn't be used against her, since that was one of the few things that could block mental attacks like Charles Xavier's. However, there is one other helmet. So remember the Juggernaut from Deadpool 2? Well, for those who haven't read the comics, the Juggernaut's helmet apparently does have the special properties of actually blocking out the mental attacks from Charles Xavier. It's one of the reasons the Juggernaut wears that, because he's Charles Xavier's stepbrother, and apparently Charles has tried messing with Zed before, so he wears the helmet all the time to keep him out. Well, there is a Juggernaut working for Cassandra Nova. It's the version of Juggernaut from X-Men 3, The Last Stand. And yeah, he still has his helmet, and it's probably just as effective. The only difference is he doesn't go up against Cassandra, because I don't know why he doesn't work for Cassandra. But the thing is, if they think that they can get that helmet off the Juggernaut, then they could use that to block Cassandra's mental powers, which is probably the best strategy they can think of. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, these people really don't have a lot to lose right now. Because the thing is, the reason why all these heroes are here in the Void is because, like Deadpool, their timelines are being destroyed as well. And like Deadpool, the TVA got rid of them because they knew that they would fight to save their worlds, which I'm a little suspect about that. I'm guessing that the implication is that Mr. Paradox was behind them being pruned as well. So he might have been in charge of their timelines and wanted to cut them off at the root like them, and he got rid of any potential threats by erasing these particular heroes from the timeline. Daredevil, he was one of the heroes that died. Sorry, that just popped in my head. But point is, I think it's just a little strange. It's just, I think the implication is that Mr. Paradox was the one that was in charge of them. Again, I think. It's never really confirmed. All we really know is that it's the TVA that sent these particular heroes here because they knew that they would fight to save their worlds, even though they were doomed. So, it's a little up in the air, but I'm kind of in the mindset maybe Mr. Paradox is behind it. Point is, though, they see this opportunity to storm Cassandra's fortress as their final Hail Mary, something to finally make their stories matter, or in the case of Gambit, finally have his story told. And Deadpool is all for doing this, but Wolverine thinks that they're all idiots and they're just going to get themselves killed. Which does actually lead to a heartfelt scene later, as while everyone's preparing to storm Cassandra's fortress the next day, Laura and Wolverine end up sitting down around a campfire and they talk. And while Laura does explain the story of her Wolverine about how he was brash, arrogant, and drunk, and just kind of a douche, she also talks about how he was there when he was needed most, and because of him, Laura and several other kids got the chance to finally live. However, this Wolverine is a bit more skeptical of all that, and he finally opens up to Laura about what it is that happened in his timeline that made him the worst. It turns out in his timeline, like in the main X-Men timeline, he did join the X-Men, but he was a very tardy member. And many times he outright refused to wear the black and yellow suit because he thought it was childish. It looked stupid. He didn't want to be caught dead wearing it. And so he tended to not be a very reliable member of the X-Men. Well, apparently that unreliance came back to bite the X-Men hard, as one day, while Wolverine was out drinking his ass off, apparently the X-Mansion was stormed by several humans that wanted to go mutant hunting, as Wolverine put it. And, well, they came in full force. And by the time Wolverine got back from the bar, it was too late. All of his friends were dead, and he didn't stop it. As a result, he wears his suit as a memento. Why he wears it because he wants to remember all the people he let down, and those memories constantly weigh on him. However, despite hearing this, Laura does still believe in Wolverine and thinks that he can be a big help. And while he tries to say that he's not the man that she's looking for, she says, "You never were, but you were until it mattered." And so, this does give Wolverine time to think about it, and, well, he eventually does change his tune, as the next day, Deadpool, Laura, Blade, Elektra, Gambit, and yes, Wolverine, who's hiding in the trunk of the Honda Odyssey, end up storming right into Cassandra's fortress, managing to blow the entrance with a rocket launcher and just make their way in. And from there, it's an awesome fight scene. We just see all of these heroes just kicking ass, taking names, just mowing down all of Cassandra's forces in their attempt to get to both Cassandra and the Juggernaut. It's a really damn good scene, and it's just so damn good, and it's just so fast-paced and quick, and manages to show all the characters just using their known abilities to their best, and it's just a damn good time. I cannot recommend it enough. But ultimately, through the fight, Deadpool and Wolverine managed to make their way into Cassandra's little base inside Ant-Man's head, and she just kind of is having tea and saying how she finds it how she kind of found it strange that they managed to escape, and finds it even stupider for them to even come back. As such, while Wolverine and Deadpool once again try and give her shade, well, it doesn't really go well, as all Cassandra does is just throw it aside and forget about him before she ends up messing with Wolverine, has him stab himself with his own claws, or digging said claws in the ground. As such, from there, she decides to go probing in his head to see exactly what happened to him that made him the worst, and it turns out there's more to the story than what Logan told Laura. As when Cassandra goes into Wolverine's head, it turns out on the night when the X-Men were killed, Wolverine was there, and he chose to walk away. He could hear them all pleading for his help. He heard the X-Men crying for him to come back for them, and he just ignored them. He just kept walking. And when it was all said and done, and he found the X-Men's bodies, it broke him. And it broke him hard. And as a result, he wound up going on a killing spree, not just hunting down the humans that murdered the X-Men, but any human he could find, good or evil. He just kept mowing them down until eventually there was just no more rage left to give. It's actually kind of dark and twisted. And the thing is, part of the reason why Wolverine is in the stupor that he is, he's as cynical as he is, that he's as angry as he is because he carries this self-loathing with him because, yeah, well, Mr. Paradox may be a whiny bitch. He was kind of right about one thing. The things this Wolverine did are kind of unforgivable. It's kind of sick and twisted, and all this Wolverine wants is just forgiveness. And Cassandra tries to take this opportunity to try and sway him over to her side, as she tries to tell him that in the Void that he can make it all, that she can help him, that in the Void he doesn't have to worry about holding back, he can be himself, he can be all good, and that if he works for her, she can make the voices stop, which he demonstrates as all the cries for help from the X-Men just go silent in Wolverine's head. However, as she says that she's got Wolverine, that she's got him, it's okay, he just looks to her and says, "No, I got you." At which point, Cassandra freaks out, and we see that in the real world, Deadpool and the other members of the rebellion were busy, as while Wolverine and Deadpool were confronting Cassandra, the rebellion managed to confront the Juggernaut, and they sliced and diced him. They chopped him off of the legs, and they managed to rip off his head, and Laura managed to throw either his helmet or his head into the vault, but either way, that at least gets Deadpool and Wolverine the helmet, and so while Cassandra was occupied with Wolverine, Deadpool got back up and then shoved the helmet on Cassandra's head, effectively trapping herself in her own mind and nullifying her powers. As such, with all that said and done, they immediately tell Cassandra to get them out of the Void. But Cassandra isn't going for it. She still is angry, and she tells them that she even tells them that she can't get them out of the Void unless they get the helmet off. And she says that the instant the helmet's off, she's gonna kill them, and she's gonna enjoy herself when she does it. And as such, it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either they kill her and get stuck here, or they take the helmet off and she kills them. Basically, they're just trapped. Basically, they're just screwed either way. However, before they can make a decision, a new player enters the fray in the form of Pyro, who enters the throne room and shoots Cassandra. Why? Because it turns out he's a double agent. Mr. Paradox wanted making contact with him, and basically Pyro's job was to keep an eye on Deadpool and Wolverine, with Mr. Paradox promising to get him out of the Void if he played ball. However, all this really results in is Wolverine just knocking him out because he's sick of so many people having to talk, and so Cassandra, being cut off from her powers, can't heal herself. As such, while the option is thrown out to potentially just let her die, well, Wolverine actually advocates for sparing her life, mostly because it's what Charles Xavier would do. Yes, Cassandra may be a psychotic nutball, and Wolverine may have strayed from his past something fierce, but he knows that if Chuck was here right now and saw Cassandra, he would have fought tooth and nail to help her. If he had known that she existed, he would have gone through hell and high water just to try and save her. And it's in his memory that Wolverine will save Cassandra right now, even though he knows that may result in his death. As such, with a bit of reluctance, they get the Juggernaut's helmet off of Cassandra, and she's able to heal herself, but she doesn't end up filleting Deadpool or Wolverine. In fact, she thinks that because they helped her, that they saved her life, she's a little indebted to them. As such, she decides to essentially throw them a metaphorical bone, as she does decide to help them get back to the X-Men universe. As it turns out, she does have a means of getting out of the Void, as once upon a time, a variant of Doctor Strange made their way into the Void, and Cassandra proceeded to kill him and wear his skin for a few days. But one of the thing of his that she did keep around was his sling ring, and so using the sling ring, she's able to open a gateway straight to Deadpool and Wolverine's universe, though she adds a little caveat because Elias has come back, and he's probably after Deadpool and Wolverine. So she says that the pair probably got maybe 4 seconds before Elias kills them. Thankfully, though, with a bit of slow-mo running, Deadpool and Wolverine managed to make it through the portal and make it back to the X-Men universe, specifically right in the middle of the used car dealership that Peter and Wade work at, just as Peter was selling a car to a family, with a little funny scene where the kids see Deadpool and Wolverine and go and Deadpool says, "Yeah, Fox killed this guy, but Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90." I don't know, it's funny. But the point is, though, now that they're back, now that Deadpool and Wolverine are in the X-Men timeline, this gives Wolverine the chance to stop Mr. Paradox, try and get to the Time Ripper and shut it down before it completely destroys the timeline. With Mr. Paradox becoming aware that these two managed to make it out of the void and that they're going to be coming for his head. So he wants to speed up the destruction of this timeline as quickly as possible, as in the home base, or as in the TVA's base in this timeline, which in this case was the subway that the TVA agents are working at because they were keeping an eye on Deadpool. They're trying to speed along the process of getting the Time Ripper up and running. But back in the void, Cassandra decides she wants to interrogate Pyro and figure out why exactly he betrayed her. And thankfully, he tells her without her having to probe his mind because he doesn't want her fingers in his head. And he explains, that Mr. Paradox put him up to it. Which is a big no-no because Cassandra thought that she had a deal with the TVA. As such, after Mr. Paradox comes out and yells at Deadpool and Wolverine and pretty much just calls them useless morons who shouldn't have come back in the first place, immediately a sling ring portal appears behind the pair, and out from it comes Cassandra and Pyro, though Pyro quickly gets killed, as Cassandra is none too pleased with Mr. Paradox apparently disrupting the agreement that that Cassandra and the TVA have. As such, she believes that a bit of recompense is in order, and while Deadpool says that he and Wolverine have got this covered, she responds to that by telekinetically throwing them into a shop and just leaving them there. In the meantime, she thinks that she needs a bit of payback, as she decides that if Mr. Paradox wants to fuck with her, then she's gonna fuck with the TVA. And so, after going around in Paradox's head, she learns about the Time Ripper and decides that she wants to use it. Not to just destroy this timeline, but every timeline, every reality, every universe, until all that's left is the void. And so she drags Paradox down to the base, back to the TVA base in this timeline, so that she can do it. Though she does tell Paradox that she is going to make sure that Wolverine and Deadpool are occupied, so they can't get in their way. As such, after Deadpool and Wolverine get themselves reoriented, they soon realize that there are more people coming through the sling ring portal. And at first, Deadpool's overjoyed at who it is, because the first one to come through, it's Dogpool again, who just runs into Deadpool's arms, who's just so happy to see his canine counterpart. He's just all nice, having her lick his face. It's adorable. Until Nicepool comes, much to his own chagrin. However, as Deadpool is angry as he doesn't want to hand Dogpool over again, we see that these two variants of Deadpool aren't the only ones to come through the portal. As when they look through, Wolverine says that he smells Wade. A lot of Wade. And sure enough, coming from the void is the Deadpool core. I love it. I just absolutely love it. I've already shown that I am very much biased when it comes to the multiverse, but seeing the Deadpool core on screen is perfect. And yeah, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's an entire team of Deadpools from across the multiverse, and it's perfect. We've got a female variant of Deadpool called Lady Deadpool, who, guess what, is actually played by Ryan Reynolds' IRL wife. There is a zombified head of Deadpool called Headpool, who flies around with a little copter on his head so that he can move around. There's a kid variant of Deadpool called Kidpool, who, again, is played by Ryan Reynolds' real-life daughter. There's a baby variant of Deadpool. There is a pacifist version of Deadpool called Zenpool. There's a Japanese Deadpool called Roninpool. There's a cowboy Deadpool called the Deadpool Kid. There's the Golden Age Deadpool, who's a version of Deadpool from World War II. There is Deadpool 2099, who's Deadpool's daughter in an alternate in the future. It's just a whole cavalcade of alternate Deadpools, and As someone who loves the multiverse and has actually read some of the stories featuring these variants of the character, I was just geeking out when I first saw the movie and saw them here. Unfortunately, they're not coming as friends. Despite Nicepool not being antagonistic towards his main universe counterpart, the other members of the Deadpool Corps, well, they were given a job by Cassandra, and they're here to do that job, and that job is shoot up Deadpool and Wolverine. And as such, while Deadpool tries talking down his counterparts because, well, at this point he thinks the whole multiverse thing in the MCU is played out and they gave it a shot and they failed, well, the Deadpool Corps doesn't really give a shit because they know Cassandra's going to wipe out the multiverse anyway, and even if it means they'll all die too, they're too insane to even give a shit. As such, Lady Deadpool pulls out her Uzis and opens fire on Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool ends up using Nicepool as a human shield. Probably because Deadpool doesn't want to give up Dogpool. As such, after he thinks his handsome counterpart has dealt with enough, Wolverine, Nicepool, and Dogpool end up ducking for cover behind a car. And while Wolverine chews Deadpool out for what he did, Deadpool thinks it's fine. Nicepool's a Deadpool after all. He's got a healing factor too, right? No, he doesn't. In reality, bullets hurt him just as much as anybody else. And yeah, while Deadpool doesn't actually say anything, I think he's happy with this news. Like, maybe before he used Nicepool as a human shield as a form of catharsis, but now learning that this handsome variant of himself does not have a healing factor, he just starts abusing the hell out of it as he sees the donut cart say that it's practically a walking hospital and they've got something to help him, which even Wolverine thinks is a load of shit. And then Deadpool just runs out in front of the Deadpool Corps, who are still opening fire on him, and uses Nicepool as a shield. He even just stops in the middle of the street saying that his legs are tired. It's just Deadpool being a complete and utter ass. And that basically just ends with Nicepool getting his head blown off while Deadpool uses the rest of his body as his shield as he dives for the donut cart, with Wolverine managing to get the Deadpool Corps to stop opening fire as he uses Dogpool as a shield because, well, everyone loves Dogpool. Even the Deadpool Corps thinks he's adorable, so they don't want to hurt him. As such, Deadpool, to try and honor Nicepool's sacrifice, steals his golden Uzis. At which point he realizes that if they want to get to Cassandra, they gotta go through the Deadpool Corps. As such, Wolverine and Deadpool suit up in an honestly really kick-ass scene as they just get ready as they get into the street. Wolverine sends Dogpool off since he doesn't want her to be a part of all that. And to make even better, Wolverine ends up masking up, as apparently he did have a hood on his suit that had the traditional Wolverine mask, and yes, it looks awesome. As such, Wolverine and Deadpool arm themselves, and we get this really damn awesome scene as we see the pair of them just go through the Deadpool Corps, mowing down the members just one by one in practically a continuous shot as we see all the Deadpools try piling on top of these two. And again, Deadpool and Wolverine just mow right through them. Yeah, they have some challenges along the way, but it's just such an awesome scene. Just seeing them slice and dice and slash and bash every single Deadpool they come across, and it's perfect. And apparently Blind Alice is hearing all this and wishes that she was deaf, but it's just such a damn cool scene, and I cannot do it justice. And it ends with pretty much every Deadpool just ripped apart. Unfortunately, though, unlike Nicepool, all the variants of the Deadpool Corps do have healing factors, so they all get right back up, and Deadpool realizes that they can't keep fighting them like this. But thankfully, help arrives in the form of Peter, who was there when Deadpool and Wolverine had their re-entry, and it turns out, to help Deadpool out, he wound up grabbing the Deadpool suit in his work locker. Sorry, Chinny jumped on the bed there. And ran it and suited up himself to go join Deadpool. And seeing Deadpool and Wolverine surrounded by the Deadpool Corps, he comes in and says, "It's okay, fellow Deadpools, everything's fine." At which point Deadpool wonders what the hell Peter's doing here, only for the Deadpool Corps to go, "Holy shit, that's Peter!" As it turns out, Apparently every Deadpool has a Peter. All of them love Peter. They think he's amazing, and as a result, the entire Deadpool Corps just puts down their arms as they all just run up and cheer for Peter as they pick him up and say, "Yay, Peter, you're awesome!" And it's just awesome. It's amazing, and I love it. Nice to see Peter do something. But either way, that means that essentially the Deadpool Corps is no longer a problem. As a result, this allows Deadpool and Wolverine to run into the subway to try and stop Cassandra. Unfortunately, it's too little too late. Cassandra managed to use her manipulation of Mr. Paradox to get the controls to the Time Ripper up and running, and managed to get it activated. As such, after she dumped Mr. Paradox, she went right to the Time Ripper, and is now just straight up absorbing the power from it. And as Mr. Paradox later says, that if she can absorb the power of the Time Ripper, she'll have the power to completely destroy every reality, like she said. And as such, while Deadpool and Wolverine want to know how to turn it off, with Wolverine even threatening Mr. Paradox because the guy is still a whiny dickwad who doesn't want to say anything, he says that there is a way to stop the Time Ripper, as below it in a cavern below, there are two energy coils that are connected. There are two energy coils that are pumping the machine with matter and antimatter. And if they can disrupt the machine, if they can disrupt those by linking them together, then it would be able to destabilize the machine enough that it would completely destroy the Time Ripper. Unfortunately, though, in order to do that, Deadpool or Wolverine would have to act as a conductor. And considering this is a meeting of matter and antimatter, it would completely obliterate them. So much so that not even Wolverine or Deadpool's healing factors would be able to restore them. They'd just be gone. However, if they don't do this, then it will result in this entire timeline and every other timeline being destroyed. So they have to do something. As such, Deadpool and Wolverine manage to make their way to the bottom. And while at first Wolverine says that he needs to do this because, well, he's got nothing left to live for, and it's only right that he finally do something heroic, Deadpool ends up knocking him out and ends up going into the room where they have the energy coils and locking the door behind him because he thinks that this is what he has to do, and that he may not want to do this, but he needs to do this, if just for the people he loves. And yes, I do love how that's an echo with what the scene with Happy Hogan at the beginning of the movie. As such, while Wolverine says that no, it shouldn't be Deadpool, it should be him, Wade eventually makes his way to the coils, and sure enough, he manages to get to one of the coils and rips it open and pulls it out. Unfortunately, though, as he tries reaching for the other coil to try and get to that one and try and meet them in the middle, it turns out that Deadpool doesn't have enough reach, and as a result, Cassandra is continuing to use the Time Ripper to completely destabilize this timeline. And, it's kind of horrifying, as you want to know how the timelines are destroyed in the MCU multiverse? They spaghettify. Like, literally, the entire timeline spaghettifies. It's like the entire reality was thrown into a black hole. It's fucked up and creepy, and it's fucked up and creepy in an artistic way, and that just makes it even more disturbing. And as a result, and we see that that's already beginning to happen where Cassandra is. Thankfully, though, Wolverine managed to get into the room, and he ends up grabbing Deadpool's hand, and as such, Wolverine manages to becomes the other end of the link, as he manages to extend his claws into the other coil, and the energy from both end up flowing through both Deadpool and Wolverine. And as a result, we do see them reflecting on their lives, on the things they could have done, as they see them realizing they can be heroes and they can do good. We even see that with the thing that spurred Wolverine on to help was when he found the picture of Deadpool's family, which I like that, as it does show that there's a heart to the guy. And the energy ends up backing up the Time Ripper, which in turn not only stops the X-Men universe from being destabilized, but the feedback ends up blowing back onto Cassandra and blows her up with the machine. I don't think her mental powers will be able to save her from that. And as a result, the timeline is saved, though seemingly at the cost of Deadpool and Wolverine. As such, as this goes on, it turns out that this whole escapade got the attention of some of the higher-ups of the TVA because they were detecting an unlicensed Time Ripper being used, and they want an answer for that. And as a result, the head of the TVA, whose name I will now look up because I forgot it, her name was B-15, ends up walking into the TVA base in this timeline and wants to know what the hell is going on. Of course, Mr. Paradox denies any involvement, as he says that Cassandra Nova was the one responsible for all this. She was the one trying to destroy the timelines, and Mr. Paradox was the one keeping her in line. But the ones who really stopped her were Deadpool and Wolverine, who valiantly sacrificed their lives even though they were told that they wouldn't survive, and that he's honored to have their sacrifice, and that it's sad that the world has lost two valiant heroes. Only for Deadpool and Wolverine to come up and for Mr. Paradox to yell "fuck" when he realizes that now these two assholes can tell everyone that what he did. Because, yeah, it turns out that while that energy would have destroyed one of them, it turns out that Deadpool and Wolverine combined was act as enough of a filter so that the energy could still cause a feedback without completely destroying either of them. I guess. I don't know. Either way, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't kill them. But it did rip Wolverine's costume enough so that you can see Hugh Jackman's toned chest, so, yeah, that's a thing. Point is, though, they're able to tell that Mr. Paradox is completely full of shit, and that, yes, he was the one in charge of all this, and as a result, B-19 has him hauled away because he was operating an unlicensed Time Ripper to try and destroy a timeline that wasn't even up to be destroyed. As such, kicking and screaming, Mr. Paradox is dragged away, and while at first B-19 wants to try and prune Deadpool because she thinks he's a variant, Peter comes in and says no, he's local, he's from here, and apparently B-19 thinks that Peter looks good in the Deadpool suit, as she immediately looks smitten, so to speak. As such, immediately B-19 says that calls Deadpool and Wolverine out for what they did, for all the criminal acts that they did. She at least gives them enough leeway because their actions at the end of the day did save the multiverse, and much more. As it turns out that whatever they did, it stopped the X-Men timeline from deteriorating, and now it's just continuing to keep moving. It's fixed. It's no longer going to die. So Deadpool apparently did a lot of good right now, and B-19 says that he should be that he and Wolverine should be careful because they may be needed later, with Deadpool continuing to echo the lines of Wolverine doing this till he's 90. But as such, Deadpool tries using this opportunity to try and vouch for the rebellion from the Void, saying that they wouldn't have gotten here without their help, and that maybe the TVA could do something, actually help them go back to their worlds, or help them in some way so that they don't end up dying, so that they actually can have lives outside the Void. And B-19 promises that she'll see what she can do, and Deadpool even takes this opportunity to try and do what he promised Wolverine he'd do, and see if he can, fix his timeline, make it so that he didn't do the terrible thing he did. But B-19 refuses, mostly because that the past that Wolverine is so ashamed of, it's what led him here, to being a hero that saved the multiverse. And, well, she doesn't want to undo that. And so she tells, after assuring Wolverine that he truly is a hero, she leaves them be as all the TVA agents go off to just, clean up this mess. And sure enough, that also means probably sending the Deadpool Corps back to the Void, which I think sucks because they're all Deadpools. I think they have their own world they can go back to. But again, they're not from here, and they cause a lot of problems, and it's clear that they are very more dangerous than you would want. So I guess maybe it's for the best. I don't know. But either way, Deadpool and Wolverine decide to go get some shawarma to celebrate. And so as the two of them just kind of shoot the shit and talk, it turns out one Deadpool variant managed to make it through without being sent back to the Void. Dogpool, who immediately runs up to Wade, and the good Mr. Wilson is just happy to see his canine counterpart still in one piece. As such, with everything said and done, Wolverine decides that maybe it's time he just go off and do his own thing. He has a new lease on life now, so maybe he wants to go out and try and find something else for him to do in this new timeline. But Wade offers him a chance to just hang out one last time, and so sure enough, the film cuts to later as we see Wade, Wolverine, and yes, Laura at Wade's apartment with all of his friends, including Shatterstar from Deadpool 2, which I didn't mention his name in Deadpool 2 because, again, he was one of the members of X-Force that died, but I guess his death didn't stick? Fuck if I know. I don't know. Point is, he's alive, and he's here, and everyone's happy to see him, and everyone's just happy, and sharing and everything. But Wolverine immediately takes this opportunity to try and nudge Deadpool, as he takes Dogpool away from him and tells him to just go talk to Vanessa, and it leads to a genuinely nice scene as Deadpool talks with Vanessa, which I wrote this line down, so I'm going to go look it up, where Wade tells Vanessa, I did it for you. Even if you don't want me, I did it for you. And Vanessa just holds his hand. As again, it's clear they still love and care about each other. And the film ends as Deadpool and Wolverine just sit around the table with everyone they care about, with their masks resting on a table. And as the film goes black, we get this nice little montage of all these behind the scenes footage from all the various 20th Century Fox Marvel movies, X-Men, Fantastic Four, etc. It's really nice and a good way to essentially act as a capstone to those kind of movies. But there is also an after credit scene where Deadpool kind of puts to rest something. Like I said, Johnny Storm got killed because of things that Deadpool said. So he wants to make the record clear that Deadpool didn't just pull all that shit from nowhere. As it turns out that on the way, as he pulls up footage, and it turns out, yeah, Johnny Storm went on a very long cavalcade cursing Cassandra out when Wolverine and Deadpool were being brought to her base, saying that she can lick his cinnamon roll, that even if she ripped the skin off him and he died there, he wouldn't be satisfied unless he killed her and pissed on her corpse. It's a really good scene. Again, I recommend looking it up. And apparently Chris Evans memorized the monologue for that scene because he doesn't get to say that stuff very often, so he was going to have fun with it. So, yeah. That was Deadpool and Wolverine, and if you stayed for the whole hour and 20 minutes of this, what are my thoughts on the movie? Honestly, it's a lot of fun. Here's the thing. When it comes down to the hierarchy of the Deadpool movies, I think Deadpool 2 is the best. Well, I just think that Deadpool 2 is a lot more nuanced with how it handles its subject matter and how it tells its story and emotions that went into it. And as a result, I think Deadpool 2 is just a bit higher when it comes to this. But with that said, Deadpool and Wolverine is still a fantastic movie in its own regard. As much like the first two Deadpool movies, it manages to still expertly mix the drama and the comedy that make Deadpool who he is, while still managing to integrate him into not only the MCU, but also into all the other 20th Century Fox Marvel movies. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, kind of had to collect myself. But, yeah, like I said, the film is before I talk about how it connects to the MCU, let me talk about this film in relation to the other 20th Century Fox Marvel movies. And the thing is, while this film acts as the third film in the Deadpool trilogy, it also sort of acts as an epitaph to the 20th Century Fox Marvel films. As throughout the movie, there are constant references to all the other films that came prior to it, both good and bad. And throughout the void, you can see all these little things from across all the various Marvel movies that manage to sneak their way in. Some of them from the MCU, yes, but also things from other Marvel projects. Again, hold on one second. Sorry about that dog stuff, but yeah, like I said, the film is just dotted with references to the pre-MCU Marvel movies, and like I said, the film does a great job at not only continuing those stories, but in a strange way, actually honoring them. And it goes as far as we see the characters. Like I said, Cassandra's forces are all dotted with all these various villains that we've seen from previous X-Men movies, from featuring the Juggernaut in from X-Men Origins, to seeing Toad from the X-Men movies, having Pyro be Mr. Paradox's inside man, and it is the same version of the character from the original X-Men movies. It was even confirmed by the actor. To featuring characters that we've seen from X-Men First Class. To, yes, even featuring characters from other non-X-Men movies. Hold on again, sorry, blanked on the name. From having Wesley Snipes' Blade appear in the movie, and it is the same version. To having the Elektra from Daredevil and the Elektra movie pop in, which I know she died in the Daredevil movie, but I guess she had her own solo movie. To even having fucking Channing Tatum come in to play the role of Gambit because he had been vying to have a Gambit movie for so long, and Ryan Reynolds decided to give him a chance by having him play that character, which to kind of go on that same note, I love how they feature the characters in this movie. That's because it really feels like a good way of honoring them in a very meta sense, because, well, these are characters who did have stories once upon a time. Stories that people loved and enjoyed seeing and were popular once, But then, for one reason or another, they just stopped, and that's partially because, yeah, the quality of the movies wasn't good, so the studio said, "Fuck it, we don't want to deal with these anymore." But essentially, but the kind of looking at it from the character's perspective, they were just pushed aside. Even in universe, these people had stories told about them, things that they were doing, lives that they saved, worlds that they fought for. And the TVA just brushed them under the rug to make way for the new, which in this case was the MCU, especially in the case of Gambit, because since his movie never even got made, he didn't even have a story to tell. He never got the chance to make a legacy because there was never a legacy to make. There was nothing for him to do. And as a result, him and the other members of the rebellion are just fighting so that they can have a proper ending, or at least just a story to tell. And in that regard, it actually does make you feel sorry for them, because in a meta sense, we know why their stories are being told or were cut off. But in universe, these are people with lives, people who did things that were important, but now we're just forgotten about. And now this is their chance to finally stand up and do something. In that same regard, see, and combining that with by showcasing all these other characters from other 20th Century Fox X-Men movies, like having like the Human Torch played by Chris Evans, which again is really awesome, because you would expect him to play Captain America in an MCU related project. To having one of the big bads be the sister of Charles Xavier, to having the heroes actually storming Cassandra's fortress and showing why they're awesome, to even having fucking Laura from Logan come in. It all just feels like a great big love letter and a great way of continuing their characters, of actually showing them actually having them showcase that they did matter beyond just existing pre-MCU. That they really did have lives, they really did matter, and that they can still kick ass, allowing this to actually act as a proper finale to them and actually show them doing what they do best, being heroes. And it's really nice and really cool. With that said, it kind of suffers from a similar flaw that one would have with Spider-Man No Way Home. Namely, unless you know who any of these characters are, you probably wouldn't be as invested in them. And the thing is, for some of these characters, while I did still have that rush of adrenaline and euphoria seeing them because I was familiar with their prior works, save for Channing Tatum, because I had no idea that he had been vying to get a Gambit movie made. Hold on 1 second. Again, I wasn't very familiar with those stories. Hell, the only reason the thing is, up until Laura was announced to actually be a part of the movie, I had not sat down and watched Logan. I had it on DVD for a while, but it wasn't until Deadpool and Wolverine that I finally just said, okay, I finally have an excuse to watch this thing. If it wasn't for that, I probably would not have known much about her character. With that said, I will let it slide a little bit, because even if you don't know who these characters are, the way they talk about how their stories are just kind of cut off at the root, so to speak, to make way for other stories to be told, it does still make you feel sorry for them, especially in the case of Gambit, because going in knowing that Channing Tatum because even going in without knowing about Channing Tatum and how he kept trying to get a Gambit movie off the ground, it does still make you feel sorry for you still feel sorry for this guy, because even if you didn't know the behind the scenes stuff with him, this version of Gambit was never seen on screen. I think the only time that Gambit ever appeared in a Marvel project was in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and that Gambit was not even close to the guy that we see in this movie. Much like how Ryan Reynolds kept trying to get a proper Deadpool movie made, and the first time we saw him portray the character, he did not even resemble the character that we would want to see. So, in that regard, even not knowing all the behind the scenes stuff, it still does make you feel sorry for him. And ultimately, even if you don't know any of these characters, never watched a single X-Men movie, and your introduction to this was just the Deadpool movies and the MCU, I think it still works enough. At least enough. Again, I'll still call it a flaw, because again, in order to fully appreciate these characters, you do have to be at least aware of their pre-existing status as characters from other movies, and so I will still consider that a problem. But But overall, but again, I think I think they give you at least enough sympathy that you can still like them. Hell, to give another example, I like seeing Wesley Snipes as Blade in this movie, but even though I can safely say I'm not that big a fan of Blade, yeah, feel free to jump down my throat on that one, because yeah, if the MCU ever does a proper Blade movie, I'll probably get to talking about that, but yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Blade. I don't hate him. I don't. It's just that I like other characters more, so take of that what you will. But even then, I still thought he was awesome in this movie, so I'll give him that. But either way, like I said, it's still cool, but you do probably need to know at least something about some things about these characters in order to fully appreciate the cameos. With kind of getting onto the other flaws in the movie, another problem I have with the movie is Mr. Paradox as the villain. Yeah, I'm not going to dance around that. This guy's a whiny bitch. Now, I think the idea with Mr. Paradox is that he's supposed to be kind of like a proxy for toxic fan bases / studio executives who decide what's prim and proper and what truly has to make it into a story in order to make it sacred and all that crap. And if that was the case, they did a damn good job at showcasing how annoying people like this are, because holy shit, I did not like Mr. Paradox. From the instant he started whining and bitching about how he didn't want to just sit back and watch the X-Men universe die, to saying how he had to kill it, and how the higher-ups don't know any better. They has to do this to prove himself, and that Deadpool wasted his chance when he was offered a place in the secret timeline to say that he didn't want anyone ruining his plans to get higher up, and blah, blah, blah. Fuck this guy. He was just annoying, and it's just... he was just a whiny little bitch, and he really did not make for a good villain, in my opinion. Like I said, maybe the intent with him was that he was meant to be a proxy for, like, toxic fan bases, which, you know what? Fair. I've seen, to kind of give an example, people have claimed that just Hugh Jackman being in this movie immediately makes the ending of Logan just worthless, because Logan had a proper death in that, and yet here he is, even though in universe this Wolverine is not that Wolverine, so that Wolverine's death still means something. And the beginning of the movie had Deadpool using the guy's skeleton as a weapon. It's just... So, I can kind of see what they were going for here, especially since Mr. Paradox makes similar arguments that the toxic fans do, including there was even one scene where while he was talking about destroying Deadpool's universe, he has a guy get him a sandwich. It's just like, I eat my feelings. Like, but to kind of give a counter to that, let's talk about Cassandra Nova. Now, I want to say this right now. I only knew the barest stuff about Cassandra going into this movie. I had heard enough about her to at least be aware of her existence in the comics, but as I've stated many times, I don't read the X-Men comics, and if I ever do read them, it's usually as a particular storyline or an alternate universe book. Because when it comes to the X-Men, there is just too much shit packed in for me to want to keep track of it all. But with that said, I did hear at least enough about Cassandra to know that this bitch be cray-cray. And so seeing her as one of the villains in Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, she definitely was a step up above Mr. Paradox, and you can kind of see why she co-opts the role of the big bad at the end of the movie when she takes control of the Time River, because compared to Mr. Paradox, she is definitely the one. Let me put it this way: if Mr. Paradox is the example of a whiny, entitled kid who just wants to get his way, damn everyone else, then Cassandra is the type of kid that kills the neighborhood pets and then makes it look like an accident. Because, yeah, she's fucked up. Throughout the entire movie, she has the demeanor of a child. And I mean that in the scariest way possible. The thing is, because her backstory was that she got sent to the Void when she was so young, her entire life she has lived in the Void. And in the Void, she's been able to use her powers without even a shred of consequence. And as a result, she's used them to just toy with and play with anyone that's come into the void. She treats them as her playmates, and if she lets anyone live, it's only because she sees them as someone that she can use. Like when she tried to turn Wolverine to her side during the movie. And what I kind of like is that in a way she sort of utilizes some of Charles Xavier's tactics when trying to get someone on her side. She goes into their mind, learns what makes them tick, and then tries persuading them by offering them honeyed words, like when she tried telling Wolverine that she could make the voice in his head stop if he just joined her side and stayed in the void. But the thing is, what makes her so creepy is that because the thing is, like I said, she treats the void and everything in it as her personal playground. And everyone in it is essentially just her toys. She will abuse and break them for her own enjoyment, and she will laugh about it gleefully. And it just makes her come across as just this twisted motherfucker who has no sense of empathy. She doesn't care about anyone save herself and her own enjoyment. And because she has that almost childlike demeanor with her as she goes around just hurting people with a smile on her face, it makes her for a much more threatening villain that really makes which makes it even more terrifying, considering that she has the exact same powers as Charles. Okay, maybe not exactly the same, because as she said, in order to get someone's head, she has to physically get inside their head with her hands. But it still makes her creepy as hell, because Charles Xavier was an exceedingly powerful individual. Case in point, in Logan, he suffered from dementia, and the thing is, Charles would typically practice restraint, but with dementia, he would have excessive headaches, and it was implied in Wolverine that he killed the X-Men on pure fucking accident, just because he went loopy because of the dementia. So, and now you have Cassandra, who has just as much power as her brother, but has no self-control. She doesn't want self-control. She likes being out of control, and she will openly flaunt her power at every chance she gets. It makes her for a very creepy figure, and ultimately it makes her a much better villain than Mr. Paradox. Admittedly, it did feel like she was a little shoehorned in at the end when she decided that she was going to take the Time Ripper for herself and use it to erase every timeline save for the Void. But I would still say that she was still a creepy figure, because again, this is her retaliation for having her agreement with the TVA be broken by Mr. Paradox. As she decides, oh, they're gonna come in here and mess with my stuff, fine, I'll just erase everything else as a result. It shows just how deranged and unsympathetic this character is. She's just a monster in the purest sense, who just wants to see everything burn just so she can stand in the ashes and laugh. It makes her for a much more creepy villain, and as a result, I found her a lot more entertaining than Mr. Paradox. She at least felt a lot more chilling as a result, so I dig that. It's good stuff. Good stuff. And again, into other things that work, again, the writing. As I said, the movie does have a good job at once again juggling the comedic and dramatic aspects of Deadpool's character. Well, again, we get the drama of him as part of his character is, as his and Wolverine's characters in this movie are kind of centered around redemption, so to speak. As at this point in the movie, Deadpool thinks that he's not worth it. Part of the reason why he wanted to join the Avengers at the beginning of the movie was because he thought that only among the Avengers could he truly matter. In his own words, he needed to join the Avengers. He just needed it. And as a result, it's for that reason why he was turned away. Because as Happy said, the Avengers don't do what they do because they need it. They do what they do because other people need them. And as a result, Deadpool's story throughout the movie is essentially trying to find the hero within him. Actually try and stand up for something besides just beyond his own self-worth, and actually be the hero that everyone knows he is. Because the thing is, while it's never confirmed if Vanessa told Wade get his shit together and move on, at the very least, she knew that Wade was a good person. And part of the reason why she probably urged Wade to try and, stand up and do good things the way he did was because she wanted him to see the goodness in his heart as well. It's just that Wade, already dealing with a bunch of self-depression and self-loathing, especially since if it wasn't for his time traveling antics, she would be dead. He probably thinks that he is loathsome, and the fact that he got rejected by the Avengers probably sent him even down into a bigger self-destructive spiral, which is what resulted in him pushing Vanessa away. Even though it's clear that they both still loved and cared about one another. And part of his journey throughout the movie is trying to essentially have him forgive himself and realize that he is a good person, and that, yeah, he may not be a save the world type, but he is still a hero because his world is everyone he cares about. And he would go to hell and back just to keep them safe. And it's good. It's genuinely good stuff, and it aids into why he made his big sacrifice at the end of the movie. But on that same token, let's go to Wolverine. He's kind of in the same boat as Deadpool here. As like Deadpool, he feels that he is not a hero, that he is beyond saving, especially since when we learn of his past, he did some very horrible things, and the only reason that he still wears his superhero suit isn't because he wants to continue fighting the good fight for those that came before. No, he wants to keep it as a constant reminder of his failures, of what he did, of the shit he pulled after the X-Men were killed, and sadly his own hand in their death. Because, well, unlike other Wolverines who were very active in their roles as Wolverine, this one was ashamed of being a hero. He pushed it away, despite the fact that he said that his teammates always begged him to try and put on the costume and fight by their side. And Wolverine being Wolverine, he just said, fuck that, and went to go drink. But because of his negligence, the people he cared about were killed, and he just sat back and did nothing. And by the time he finally did decide to intervene, it was too late, and his anger and self-loathing pushed him to do some very horrible things that just added more just added more fuel to the fire in his own self-loathing. And it makes you genuinely feel sorry for the guy, because you see that because like Deadpool, you see that there is a noble spirit in there, but it's just buried under so much bile and grime and darkness, and it's just sad. And like Deadpool, you see that part of the reason why he's doing all the things he's doing isn't because he's trying to be heroic. It's because he's trying to act in his own self-interest. He wants to try and fix the mistakes of his past. He only helps Deadpool because Deadpool says the TVA can go back and undo everything that happened in your life and make it so that you did actually save your friends. And basically because of that, Wolverine kind of is operating under the same mindset as Deadpool is. That if he can do this one thing, then he can finally matter. He can put all the darkness behind him and actually show that he is a true hero. But like Deadpool, the way to see that isn't by going back and trying to fix everything that was done before, which Deadpool also did, and which Deadpool did do, and he still felt like shit. But what helps push him in the right direction is, well, seeing what he has before him. And the good way to showcase that is with Laura. Because, yeah, the fact that they got Laura back in for this movie makes it some really good character drama, because Laura does talk to Wolverine and explains how her Wolverine, they were a lot alike. In personality, they were very much the same. They were both broken men, beaten down, angry, bitter, yelling at the world and not wanting to be a part of the heroics. But at the end of the day, both Wolverines do have another thing in common. They have those heroic spirits, and despite how much the world and they themselves beat themselves down, they still kept rising back up and wanting to do the right thing. And even if they didn't want to, whenever they were needed, they were always there. And while Laura admits that, yeah, Wolverine may not be the best guy for the job, he never was. But he didn't need to be the best guy for the job. He just needed to be there. And that's kind of what helps spur Wolverine, especially when he sees that Wade is genuinely fighting for a selfless cause. He wants to save his friends and his loved ones, and that manages to strike a chord in Wolverine and reignite that spirit. Yes, the guilt is still there. The voices in his head are still screaming for help. And we saw that with Cassandra when she went into Wolverine's head, and we saw him just in utter pain as he remembered all that. but we see him trying to turn over a new leaf, actually trying to put his best foot forward as he actually tries to be the man that he knows he should have been long ago. As he takes all that pain, all that darkness, and use it to push himself forward to become a better person. And it works really damn well. And it makes for a great parallel between him and between his arc and Deadpool's, as they both are broken men who want to try and do the right thing, but who both ultimately have to realize that in order to do the right thing, they have to do it for the right reasons. And it's perfect. It's executed perfectly, and I love it. On that same note, I love Deadpool and Wolverine. They are amazing characters. I love their dynamic with each other, and it all just feels so natural. What makes it even better is that Hugh Jackman himself stated that he's been wanting to see this pair together for a while. Like 2 days after he announced his retirement from playing Wolverine, he saw the first Deadpool movie, and the instant he saw Deadpool on screen, he was like, shit, I want to work alongside this guy. And as a result, it's been kind of a running thing where he's been wanting to work, and so, as a result, while Wolverine was dead, he never really got the chance to come back as Wolverine, but he was always open to it. And it's part of why he came back for Deadpool and Wolverine. Because like us, he wanted his Wolverine to go off of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, and they're perfect together. They are great antitheses of each other. As both of them are killers that can regenerate from nearly anything. They go all out with their violence. They're both practically mercenaries. But Deadpool is zany, over the top, and doesn't take anything seriously. But Wolverine is grim and serious and keeps everything close to the neck. It just works as they operate as great foils to one another. Especially with Wolverine just constantly calling Deadpool out, or Deadpool calling Wolverine out. It's great. They have great dynamics. Wolverine acts as the perfect straight man, while Deadpool acts as the bright sunshine. They're great. They have great banter with one another, and it works really damn well. Like again, going to the scene where they were fighting in the Honda Odyssey, it was great as they started trading verbal blows with one another. When Deadpool's words end up getting Johnny Storm killed, Wolverine's just like, he died, like, that poor young man died because of you. Or when Deadpool uses Nice Pool as a human shield, it's like he died a hero. He died because of murder, you idiot. It's great. They're just perfect. And what makes it even better is that when Deadpool and Wolverine go to fight the Deadpool Corps, that when Wade asks Logan, hey, are you up to this? Logan just says, what, killing a bunch of youths? Hell yeah. And it's just like you can tell he's gonna enjoy this a lot more than he should, and it's perfect. It's just fun seeing these characters working off of each other and working alongside each other, and it's just great. And on top of that, the comedic banter between them is just on point. Deadpool and Wolverine really do work well, and Deadpool's jokes are just as funny here as they were in other movies. Hell, one of my favorite scenes is the scene when Deadpool is just jumping from universe to universe trying to find a Wolverine, and seeing all these references to Wolverine from the comics, to having comic accurate height Wolverine, to seeing him crucified in one timeline, to see him in the Age of Apocalypse one, to see the Cavalry, to see Henry Cavill play him as the Cavalry. It's just amazing, and I love it, and it's just fun. And again, to give another comment, I fucking love the action in this movie. Every action scene is perfect. It's just really down pat. It's all tight and slick and fun and moves at its own pace. It's just such a joy to the eyes. See, it's all just so slick and moving, and it's not bogged down by big explosions or laser effects. It's just awesome fight choreography, nice flashy fighting styles, all working well together to make for very entertaining footage. And some of the best fights, in my opinion, are of course the ones between Deadpool and Wolverine, as because both of them have healing factors, they can both go all out on each other as they want without worrying about the other person going down, because they both can walk away from it. And it's just fun. But even then, there's still other great scenes. The opening scene with Deadpool fighting the TVA using the X-Men universe's Wolverine's skeleton is honestly a really fun and awesome fight scene, especially with Bye 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 playing in the background. The battle when the rebellions charge Cassandra Nova's base is just kick ass, as we see everyone just doing their best, just using everything they have to fight against their soldiers, which leads to an awesome superpower brawl, which, Yeah, if Channing Tatum's Gambit was anything like what we saw in this movie, we missed out. We missed out hard. And even the fucking final fight scene with Wolverine and Deadpool versus the Deadpool Corps, it's just damn awesome. And it's all just fun and amazing and a spectacle for the eyes. So when it comes down to it, I think Deadpool and Wolverine is a really damn good movie. Again, when it comes down to the hierarchy of the Deadpool trilogy, I'd put this like in the middle. I think Deadpool 2 would go at the top, and at the bottom would be Deadpool 1, operating on the mindset that none of these movies are bad, mind you. But I do still think it's a really damn good movie. I think the action is really good. The writing is still really nice. I love the character arcs for everyone. I love the action in it. The comedy is great. The drama is amazing. The fan callbacks, fan winks, and references and cameos are all a treat for any longtime fans. And while I do have some problems with the movie, like I think the villain is a little dumb in my opinion, the form of Mr. Paradox. And again, if you aren't familiar with many of these references, you probably wouldn't care. And on a minor gripe, I do kind of get annoyed that Deadpool and Vanessa broke up, because seriously, that's another little problem I've been kind of glossing over. Vanessa's not really much of a character in the Deadpool movies. She's at best a plot point, which kind of sucks, because I do like seeing her and Wade's relationship kind of develop. But at the end of the day, Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, is a really damn good movie. It's a love letter it's not only a love letter to all the pre-MCU 20th Century Fox movies, but it's just a damn good movie in its own right. And quite frankly, if you have not seen this movie yet, I highly recommend it. It's just a great time all around. It's just a great time all around. A fun little trip from beginning to end. It's just overall a damn good time. And if you're a fan of Marvel or Deadpool or just any superhero antics, I think you'll have a good time and enjoy yourself. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. So yeah, I hope you're able to put up with my crap for almost an hour and 50 minutes now. As always, I'm Samuel Johnson. It's getting late and I should probably get some sleep, but while next week we'll be going back to Xiaolin Showdown finally, the next time we venture back into the MCU, we'll be checking in with the new Star-Spangled Man with a Plan, and I'll finally have an excuse to watch The Falcon and the Winter Soldier as we take a look at Captain America: Brave New World.